From Kamaru Usman calling out Khamzat Chimaev to Boers giving the Nigerian Nightmare a warning. This is what Khamzat versus Usman means for the welterweight division. So let's start off with the origin of this potential fight. Usman, aka the Nigerian Nightmare, has been showing interest in fighting Khamzat for a while now. It hasn't been long since he lost to Leon Edwards for a second time, so it makes sense why he's pushing for another fight so soon. Now, it doesn't mean there are any doubts about his dominance in the welterweight division, but questions about his invincibility have been raised, especially since he lost twice to the same guy. Usman has a record of 20-3 as of now. While on the other hand, Khamzat's rocking an undefeated record of 12 wins and 0 losses. Now that doesn't mean that one's better than the other, but it surely lets you see where the confidence might lie in a fight between the two. That said, Usman literally called Khamzat out. In fact, talking to ESPN MMA's Brett Okamoto about his UFC 286 title fight loss, he was pretty confident about whatever his next fight might be. He named a few fighters such as Colby Covington as well as Leon, because clearly he isn't done with him. But what's interesting is how he also named Khamzat in the lot. Not just that, he openly showed his excitement if a bout between the two gets planned. To speak about how serious he is about him, Usman also revealed that it doesn't matter what weight class he has to fight him in. Why? Because he believes his skill set isn't bound by it. Yeah, he's very confident. Safe to say, if the fight happens, it'll be an explosive clash, with one guy looking to defend his undefeated record and the other reclaiming his place as the world's best welterweight fighter. So then, let's talk about their respective records, shall we? I mean, you can't skip over the fact that there's a huge gap in their total fights. While Usman's been fighting for the past 10 years or so, with close to 25 matches under his belt, Boers, in comparison, is fairly new with only 12 professional matches under his belt. That's half the amount that his potential opponent has fought. And then, let's take a look at the people who Khamzat actually fought. Rhys McKee, Gerald Mearshard, and most recently Kevin Holland, among many others. While they're all very capable fighters, it can't be ignored that their records and overall presence in the UFC isn't top tier. Kamaru, on the other hand, has had some pretty notable opponents in the past, like Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, Tyron Woodley, and of course, Leon Edwards. Maybe that's because he's been around for a long time now, although he's also 7 years older than Khamzat if you didn't know. But the point is that for them to come together, Khamzat definitely will have to climb a few steps prior to their match. Now, it doesn't mean that Khamzat isn't worth his name in the game. He's clearly proved his worth in it, because winning so many fights consecutively isn't everyone's cup of tea. Go on, look at the records of all the greats of the sport. What it means is that at the end of the day, it's going to be an exciting match for all, especially considering how perfectly matched the two are. I mean, if you compare their heights, Usman's 6 feet with a reach of 76 inches. Now, Khamzat's taller than him at 6 feet 2 inches, but he lacks slightly in reach with 75 inches. So you see, it's kind of balanced. Even if you factor in the advantages that one has, they've also got disadvantages to balance that out. For example, Usman has got the championship experience. Oh, and it's not just that he won the title, he's also defended it. That speaks for how he can handle pressure in a high-stakes match. And of course, he's got the versatility in him as well. He's shown solid striking skills and the ability to mix up his attacks effectively. Plus, the Nigerian Nightmare's well-rounded technique is what's caused the biggest challenge for his opponents. But as I said, there are disadvantages here as well. For example, even though he's an inch higher in reach than Usman, his overall size and mobility do pose a threat to himself. Plus, Khamzat is also known for his unpredictable aggression. So when you couple that with being restricted physically, you've got yourself a problem. No doubt that Usman's faced aggressive opponents in the past, but you could say Khamzat's somewhat of an out-of-syllabus question. It wouldn't be wrong to say that Usman's disadvantages are actually Khamzat's advantages, although it's the same when you flip them the other way around as well. And whether you're excited or not, this is a match that's probably going to happen in the future. Don't believe me? Well, Dana White's in on it, and that means something for the sport. The president of the UFC actually discussed the possibility of this match going forward. However, it wasn't without a condition. He was asked about the potential matchup on the Jim Rome show, and he responded by saying that sure, the bout could happen, but not at the current weight class Usman's fighting at. He'd have to move up one level to cross the 185 mark. Reason? Well, because the boss hates catchweight fights, or in simpler words, fights that happen without weight class restrictions. Well, that's no problem. We've already discussed how Usman's willing to do that if it means a fight with the rising talent, Khamzat. So clearly, welterweight's out of the question. But there's still some confusion regarding the future of both the welterweight and middleweight divisions. For now, Leon's the title holder for the welterweight class. So how will Usman get back at him? Will he go back down after he's done with Khamzat? Or will he come up to fight him? The reward for being a multi-division champion does seem attractive though. On the other hand, Israel Adesanya reigns over the middleweight division. So would Khamzat have to first get up there to be able to get a matchup with Usman because he's just fresh out of the title? Or will it just happen according to how White plays it? Obviously, we know it'll be what the boss says, but even though the future of the bout still hangs in the balance, Khamzat's all in. At least, that's what it seems like from his recent fights, as well as his future decisions. His most recent fight was a first-round submission victory over Kevin Holland at UFC 279. However, he missed weight for that bout by 7.5 pounds, leading to changes in the fight card. He's also shown interest in moving to the middleweight division for the foreseeable future. Not just that, he's also expressed a desire to compete at the UFC's return to Abu Dhabi in October. I personally think that Khamzat does have an upper hand in this fight. It's completely understandable if you think otherwise because, at the end of the day, both are some of the best fighters in the sport. But let's be honest, Kamaru is actually at a more mature time in his career, but Khamzat is just a bit fresher. Plus, the biggest reason I think he can win it is because he's got more at stake. 12 wins and no losses. I'm sure anybody would give it their best to safeguard that record. So it's also bound to bring his best in the octagon in his next match. Plus, even though Usman has a pretty impressive record, he also has 3 losses, so it's nothing new for him. That and the fact that he's just lost 2 consecutive matches to the same person. And you tell me how his confidence might be in comparison to Khamzat? He does say that he's over the losses already, but you can't deny the psychological effect of such. And if there were any doubts about Khamzat's intentions, he also went ahead to send a warning to Usman. Like, it wasn't just an acceptance of Usman's call out. Well, he did that too. But then sent in a threatening yet respectful message to him. Confused about how that works? He first appreciated Usman as a fighter, calling him one of the best of his time. But that's where the praise stopped. Because then he said that Usman's time was over and it was his time now. It makes sense that trash talk is a part of UFC. But why like this? I think it's also worth mentioning here that Khamzat's also called Usman a clown in the past. Him and Leon Edwards, both. Not just that, he pretty much said that he'd take back the belt from both of them eventually. It might be because of the pent-up frustration of not having anything to do. After all, he's mentioned it himself that he's been sitting free and has had no fight booked. In fact, he even tweeted that he's been waiting for an offer. So clearly, Usman's call-out is what works for him, better than what he expected. And now the ball is in the UFC's court to make the fight happen. So there you have it. From Khamzat giving Usman a warning to Kamaru Usman calling out Khamzat Chimaev, that was what Khamzat versus Usman would mean for the welterweight division.